The Druze of Israel are people who defy every assumption about the Middle East. They're a tiny Arabic-speaking community who have fought and bled for Israel, celebrated by some as heroes and condemned by others as traitors. The Druze have walked a tightrope between loyalty and survival. So how did this secretive and misunderstood minority become such an integral part of Israel's story, while still being seen as outsiders by many Jews and Arabs alike? This is the story of the Israeli Druze, a people balancing identity, loyalty, and survival in one of the world's most complicated places. In the summer of 2024, a seismic event shattered the Druze community of Majdal Shams. On a clear blue day, a Hezbollah rocket blew a hole in a soccer field. When the blast tore through the air, Naila Fakhreddin went on a desperate search for her daughter, Alma.
I went to the clinic. It was a lot of blood, a lot of noise, shouting, a lot of voices. I asked over there the nurse, I'm looking for my daughter, Alma. She told me she's in one of the rooms over there. She told me, just wait for a minute. I didn't wait for a minute. I started to open the doors, looking like that. No, she's not here, she's not here, she's not here. So one of the relatives told me, you have to be strong. When she told me that, I felt like a bucket of ice. In the elevator to the first floor, I walked like a ghost, crying all the time. I entered the room. I saw her. Like an angel, she was shining. 11.5 years old, and she left the world.
The loss of Alma and the other 11 innocent children of Majdal Shams changed everything for their community. And it was a turning point not just for the Druze of the Golan Heights, but for the Druze in all of Israel and beyond. Because the mountaintops of the region were a refuge for the Druze. It's where they'd fled to protect their people. And the horror in Majdal Shams reminded them of their ancestral trauma that brought them to these highlands in the first place. A tiny minority within the Middle East, the Druze origins go back 1,000 years to Egypt, when the first Druze broke away from Shia Islam to form a new sect with new beliefs and new customs. The Druze don't actually refer to themselves as Druze. They prefer the name al-Muwahhidun, the people who believe in one God. It reflects their commitment to their faith, a faith they've had to defend for centuries. To escape persecution, they made their homes in the remote mountainscapes of the Middle East, in what are now Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Israel, which is where our story begins. The Druze identity is grounded in three essential pillars. Imad Saif is a 26-year veteran of the IDF. He lives in the village of Yanuch in the Galil. He's a religious Druze. Most Druze who agree to speak on camera are secular, which made Imad a rare exception.
מה זה אומר להיות דרוזי דתי?
העדה הדרוזית מחולקת לשני חלקים. יש את הדתיים והלא דתיים. להיות דרוזי דתי, יש מספר מצוות שצריך לקיים. אז זה תפילות, זה לבוש, זה נראות חיצוני, ואמונה. הדת הדרוזית זה אמונה, דת מונותאיסטית שמאמינה באל אחד.
מה המשמעות של השפה?
גבריות.
Imad's description of what the religious Druze believe was vague, on purpose.
הדת הדרוזית היא סודית. רק מי שדתי יודע ומבין את הדת, יכול בכלל לעיין בספרי הדת. זה חלק מהשמירה עלינו כמיעוט, זה לשמור את הדת כסודית.
And this need for secrecy informs almost every aspect of their religious practice.
כמו שיש בית כנסת או כנסייה או מסגד, אצלנו זה נקרא חילווי. חילווי זה בית רגיל, כמו כל בית אחר. אי אפשר לזהות שזה בית תפילה, אסור. זה חלק מהעיקרון שנקרא עיקרון תקיה. תקיה זה להסתתר.
Taqiyya, hiding in plain sight. It's how they survived as a tiny minority among a culture that was often hostile to them. But some of their beliefs are known to the outside world. The Druze revere the ancient Midianite priest Jethro, known to the Druze as Nebi Shu'aib, whose daughter married Moses. Yeah, that Moses. One of their fundamental beliefs is the rebirth of souls, that all the Druze today are the reincarnations of the Druze before them. But one of their most important beliefs rests in the soft space between religion and politics, an obligation for all Druze, whether religious or secular.
הדרוזים נאמנים למדינה שהם חיים בה. זה חלק מהמנגנון שיצרנו לעצמנו בשביל לשמור על עצמנו.
Over time, the Druze made a few attempts at political autonomy. But when those attempts failed, they decided to pursue a different strategy: loyalty instead of sovereignty. Their goal is to live in peace and quiet, safeguarding their unique religion and culture. And so they are ardently and abidingly loyal to the country they live in. It's about survival.
דרוזי בישראל נאמן למדינת ישראל. דרוזי בירדן, לירדן. לבנון, אותו דבר.
For centuries, the Druze were clustered together as empires swept through the Middle East. But after World War I, as the Ottoman Empire was carved up into separate territories, the Druze found themselves, a people, divided. The Druze in Lebanon and Syria fought alongside other Arabs against the French in their quest for Syrian independence. But as the Jews of Mandatory Palestine agitated for their own state, and tensions rose between the Jews and local Arabs, the Druze of the Carmel and the Galil chose a side, a surprising side.
הקשר בין העם היהודי לעדה הדרוזית התחיל עוד לפני זה 2,500 שנה, בתקופתו של יתרו ומשה רבנו, והקשר המשיך עד לפני קום המדינה. לפני קום המדינה, עוד לפני בסביבות 1936-39, בתקופות של המרד הערבי הגדול שהיה בארץ ישראל, הקשר שם והדרוזים החליטו לעמוד לצד היהודים שהיו מיעוט אחר.
Not all of the Druze were immediately in favor of the Zionists. Some preferred to ally with Arab nationalists. But after some Muslim threats to take over Jethro's tomb and some Arab aggression against some Druze villages, the Druze were firmly on the side of the Jews.
ושם הקשר התחיל ונמשך עד מלחמת העצמאות ואחרי מלחמת העצמאות.
And in the 1950s, they cemented that connection when Druze leaders petitioned the Israeli government to institute mandatory military service for Druze men. This decision changed the entire trajectory of the Druze people in Israel. Arab Israelis are generally exempted from military service, but the Druze broke from the rest of Israel's Arab minority and asked to be conscripted, with one important caveat.
פה הייתה החלטה חד משמעית שהדרוזים, בתיאום מול הצבא והמדינה, שהדרוזים לא ילחמו באזורים שיש בהם דרוזים, אלא מקומות אחרים, בשביל לא ליצור מצב שאחים הורגים אחים.
The Israeli government and military agreed.
ב-56 חל חוק גיוס חובה על בני העדה הדרוזית. התחילו להתגייס, ותוך כדי השתתפו במלחמות והיו נהרגים. אז כולם דיברו על ברית דמים. הרבה אנשים לא אהבו את המושג הזה, ברית דמים, וביקשו להחליף את זה ברית חיים, כי עדה שתורמת ונותנת את הכל למען המדינה, לא רק בצבא, אלא בכל הסקטורים האחרים של החיים. אנחנו ישראלים לכל דבר ועניין, כמו כל יהודי אחר.
זה לא מספיק לדעת איך למות ביחד, אנחנו צריכים ללמוד איך לחיות ביחד.
חד משמעי.
A decade later, Israel experienced a major transformation that had a dramatic impact on the Druze. After the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel captured land here, and most importantly for our story, here, the Golan Heights, home to a portion of Syria's Druze community.
In 67, Israel comes here, people are still in shock. People had to be careful because there were several mentionings of if there will be any agreement on peace, we are gonna get the Golan back to Syria. So people here they didn't know for sure if they're gonna stay Israeli forever or not.
In the years after the Six-Day War, the Golan status was a question mark. At times, Israel's leadership considered returning the territory to Syria to broker a peace deal. Many of the Golani Druze welcomed the idea that they might be repatriated to Syria because they considered themselves Syrian through and through. But a tiny minority of Golani Druze were willing to accept Israel's sovereignty, even pursuing Israeli citizenship. Maya's family was part of this minority. Her grandmother Veret's home is now a small museum where Maya and her family welcome visitors to their village.
Do people remember that moment in 67 positively, or was it traumatic, the Israeli conquest of the Golan?
The exact reason why this place is open is because we want to show you guys the other side that you probably never heard of. This family had a great experience, a good experience with IDF. They drank coffee with the old people, and they brought some candy to the kids. And you would see, like, my uncles would remember this candy till today. So that's how it started.
The encounter with the IDF had a lasting impact. starting with her grandmother, Vered.
And Vered said, when she saw this happening, she said, if this is what Jewish people are, there's a way to live with these people.
For Maya's family and others like them, this choice was a risky move. Israel had already handed land back to Egypt as part of their peace agreement in 1977. If they ever came to a permanent peace deal with Syria, Israel might relinquish the Golan as well. But in 1981, Israel surprised the world by officially annexing the Golan. They offered the local Druze the chance for Israeli citizenship. Many of them weren't having it. They were Syrians. They went on strike for weeks until the Israeli government clarified that the citizenship offer wasn't mandatory. And the Golan Druze community shunned those who did accept the citizenship offer. They didn't marry into their families. They didn't invite them to weddings or funerals. During the 90s and early 2000s, Israeli government chatter bubbled up about trading the Golan for peace with Syria. A grassroots movement swept across Israel, uniting the country under the slogan, Ha'am im Golan. The nation is with the Golan. And the government stopped talking about returning it to Syria. This dizzying political seesaw and endless whiplash didn't endear Israel to most of the Golani Druze, whose fidelity was still to Syria. But a decade later, their loyalty was tested as Syria descended into chaos. Bloody civil hostilities erupted in 2011, leaving millions lifeless, imprisoned, and forced to flee as refugees. Slowly, the Golani Druze began to rethink their dream of returning to Syria. But just as many Golani Druze were re-evaluating their relationship to Israel, the covenant between all the Druze and the State of Israel was tested by a painful political setback when Israel's government passed a new statute called the nation-state law. The law defined Israel as the nation-state of the Jewish people. For those of you who are thinking, duh, well, there was a catch. The law was silent on equal rights for minorities. And for the Druze, who had faithfully served in the military for decades and shed their blood for the Jewish state, this omission was a grievous insult.
On Saturday, tens of thousands, mostly from Israel's Druze community, came out to demonstrate against the country's nation-state law, saying it will make them second-class citizens.
הקשר של העדה מול המדינה קצת נפגע בעקבות החוק הזה, כי ראו בזה פגיעה או תקיעת סכין בגב, שאנחנו משרתים, נהרגים, נאמנים, ובסוף המדינה באה ושם אותנו בקטגוריה קצת נמוכה משאר העם היהודי שחי פה.
Despite this sense of betrayal, their commitment to the state runs deep.
הדרוזים נאמנים, לא משנה מה, זה לעד יהיה. הדרוזי יהיה נאמן, לא משנה מה, גם אם תיתן לי, לא תיתן לי, אני נאמן למדינה שלי.
Even so, many Druze in the Carmel and the Galil felt disillusioned in the wake of the nation-state law. It was a painful reminder that some in the Israeli government see the Druze as outsiders, not as an integral part of the country. The Druze had given so much and now felt taken for granted, downgraded to a lesser status. But for the Druze of the Golan, things were about to change, again. In 2019, the US government affirmed Israel's control of the Golan Heights. And many Golani Druze were finally willing to accept that they were a permanent part of the Jewish state. And their growing political clout was on display a few years later when the state moved to install wind turbines in the Golan Heights. But the wind turbines would disrupt the agriculture and tourism sectors that were critical for the Golani Druze. And so they took to the streets to protest. And in a sign of their increasing integration into Israeli politics and culture, they were heard. The state put its plan on hold. The slow rapprochement between the Golani Druze and Israel was making some headway. But no one was prepared for what came next.
Funerals took place.
12 of them killed.
Children who were playing on a football pitch.
The place you think it's the safest place on earth, the playground that you take your kids to, was hit with a rocket. And you lose 12 children that could have been your own, because you go there. It is... Sorry.
It's okay.
So same as me, a lot of people understood that we live as Israelis. The IDF is the only thing that could protect us as minority in the Middle East. That's the biggest change that have been caused to how people think here. A lot of soldiers joined the IDF.
The Majdal Shams massacre was a tragic link between the Druze of the Golan to families across Israel whose loved ones were cut down by terror. The strike drove home that terror doesn't distinguish anyone in Israel, Arab, Jew, Druze, Muslim, Christian, anyone is a target. The massacre resulted in a dramatic shift in their relationship with the state. And a year later, more tragedy and upheaval only strengthened that bond.
Thousands of Arab tribal fighters have travelled from all over Syria to the mainly Druze area of Suwayda.
Tension between the Druze and Sunni Bedouin tribes had been building.
Clashes between the pro-government armed forces and Druze militias.
The rage felt against the mainly Druze community here can be seen down every street.
Government-aligned Sunni fighters shaving off the moustaches of Druze men.
After 14 years of civil unrest, the Syrian regime fell in the spring of 2025. This led to Muslim radicals in Syria targeting the local Druze. And in yet another sign of their evolving relationship with Israel, the Golani Druze called on the Israeli government to help rescue their brethren across the border. And Israel heeded the call, carrying out airstrikes in Syria to protect the local Druze. Their desperate cry for Israel's help is one of the most significant indications of how some of the Golani Druze now view Israel as the place where they're safest. Today, more than 200 Golani Druze serve in the IDF, a fact that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. There are about 150,000 Druze living across Israel, and while they've served as diplomats, become politicians, and even won fame as reality TV competitors, some still see a void in resources available to the community. In 2025, Golan Heights opened DTech, an innovation center aimed at increasing the number of Druze working in the Israeli tech sector.
ראינו את הפער שנמצא בחברה הדרוזית, ומדינת ישראל התקדמה לפאק 2000, ולהערכתי שכחה את האחים שלה מאחור, לקחו אותם רק למלחמות. כפי שאתה יודע, היום יש הרבה קצינים בכירים דרוזים, אבל אין לנו צעירים דרוזים בתעשיית ההייטק מובילים, שהם יכולים לתרום לשגשוגה של מדינת ישראל, לא רק לביטחונה. כל שנה, לך תשאל דובר צה"ל, יגיד לך בין 500 ל-600 חיילים דרוזים. איך אתה בתור מדינת ישראל דואג להם?
אתה אומר שהמדינה לא עוזרת.
לא, ברור שלא.
The long history of the Druze and the Jews is proudly displayed at DTech, which is funded entirely through private donations. No state funds were involved.
ממשלת ישראל עדיין לא פה. ממשלת ישראל לא שמה פה שקל אחד למען הצעירים הדרוזים. זה דוגמה קלאסית לחוק הלאום שאני אומר לך עליו.
Koftan felt like his community had been left in the dust. They do their military service, and then they're ignored, taken for granted. And I heard a similar sentiment from Asiya Halabi, a chef from the Carmel Mountains. She keeps a kosher kitchen for entertaining Jewish guests, and the crew and I feasted on her delicious spread of Jewish specialties.
هاي نحن في عيدنا هاي العضويات المشهورة عندنا. عند الدروز إذا بتشوف هاي تعرف إنه بس عند الدروز.
Wow.
عشان كشة.
I asked Asiya how she views her identity as an Israeli Druze.
בוא במדינה שלנו זה הכי טוב. יש לנו דודה בסוריה, יש לנו משפחה בלבנון. זה אי אפשר לחיות שם. אנחנו אי אפשר לחיות שם. זה המדינה הכי טובה בשבילנו.
היו רגעים בחיים שלך פה בישראל, במדינה הזאת, שהרגשת שמפלים אותך, או שאת לא רצויה?
מסתכלים כאילו בהתחלה, אנחנו ערבים. מסתכלים ככה מלמעלה. אנחנו דרוזים, אנחנו בצבא, נלחמים במדינה, ציונים יותר מציונים. באמת, יש לי משפחה שהקימה את הציונית הדרוזית, ואני חלק מזה. ובכל זאת, מסתכלים עלינו כאילו אנחנו ערבים. זה כואב, ממש זה כואב.
את מרגישה יותר מחובר לערבים?
אבל אנחנו מחובים, לא.
לא?
אין מצב.
לא, למה?
דווקא הערבים מסתכלים על הדרוזים אחרת. אוהבים את היהודים יותר מהדרוזים.
למה?
אנחנו...
בוגדים.
כן, בוגדים.
From Asia's perspective, other Arab citizens see the Druze connection with Jewish Israelis and their military service as a betrayal. So at a market in Majdal Shams, I asked some visiting Israeli Muslims about their perspective on the Druze.
תשמע, אני בתור מוסלמי, אני יודע שהדרוזים הם חלק מהאסלאם. הם חלק מהאסלאם. אבל הם הלכו הרבה ליהדות פה. הם משרתים בצבא, הם חושבים שהם חלק מהמדינה.
לא, הם ערבים. הם ערבים, אבל יש להם דת שלהם.
אתה רואה הרבה מן המשותף עם הדרוזים בתור מוסלמי?
כן, קרובים, כן.
מה למשל?
קודם כל השפה והאוכל מנטליות, אותו מנטליות, כן.
אז האוכל מאוד דומה, שפת אם שלך זה ערבית.
כן.
אתה לא רואה את עצמך באיזשהו מובן ערבי?
במובן מסוים אנחנו כן ערבים, דת אחרת, אבל כן ערבים, שחיים פה במדינה, ואנחנו רוצים להיות ישראלים, בכל מובן המילה, כמו כל יהודי אחר שחי פה.
I could tell that Imad was frustrated by my question, that he felt like it drew a line separating us, him as an Arab Israeli and me as a Jewish Israeli. And his reaction reminded me of Asia's words and the hurt behind them, that she feels at times as if she's in a no man's land, viewed with suspicion by both Jews and Arabs, that her dignity suffers despite her unbreakable loyalty.
זה כואב, ממש זה כואב.
And if someone like Asia, whose family have been Zionists for generations, still struggles with feeling accepted, it made me wonder how the Druze of the Golan feel about their complex identity.
אתה מגדיר את עצמך או מזדהה כסורי או כישראלי?
אני מרמת הגולן.
ישראלית, כי אני גדלתי בו.
היום אני מגדיר את עצמי ישראלי.
וזה היה שונה פעם?
כאילו, הייתה שייכות כאילו סורית. היום אני חי בישראל, אני חי בכבוד במדינה שלי כאן. אני מרגיש ישראלי לכל דבר.
ברור, אני מגדיר את עצמי ישראלי, אני גם לוחם, בדיוק השתחררתי לפני איזה 3 חודשים, ועכשיו אני עדיין עושה מילואים עכשיו.
וזה נדיר? כאילו, יש לך הרבה חברים שהתגייסו?
לא, זה נדיר, כי אצלנו זה לא חובה, אתה יודע?
כן.
בגלל כל העניין הזה שיש חלק שהם עדיין מרגישים שהם סורים, ויש חלק שהם באמת מרגישים שהם ישראלים.
האסון שקרה פה לפני שנה, איך זה השפיע על החיים כאן?
לפחות מהאנשים שאני מכיר אותם, יש הרבה אנשים ששינו את דעתם, ואחרי האסון הזה, הם ידעו ב100% שלא משנה אם אתה ערבי, דרוזי, יהודי, זה מספיק מבחינתם שאתה גר פה, אתה מטרה בשבילם.
انت تعبري نفسك سورية ولا إسرائيلي؟
الأصل صعب تنسى. أنا أصلي سوري، بس أنا هون كثير مبسوطة.
يعني أصلك سوري، بس اليوم أنا عايش في إسرائيل، وفي هاي الناحية أنت إسرائيلي.
أنا لسه إسرائيلية، عم بتعامل مع إسرائيل بكل شيء، إن كان هويتي، إن كان المحل تبعي عم بفتحها من بضاعة إسرائيلية. يعني في شيء مثل ما في فاصل.
في شوية من الشباب الجولان اللي بيخدموا في الجيش الإسرائيلي اليوم، هذا إشي إيجابي بالنسبة لك؟
لا.
ليش؟
الجيش يعني صعب كثير. أنا ابني من غير علمي قدم ليفوت على الجيش، بس أنا منعته. أنا كثير حطيت محامي لمنعته. يعني إيش فكرة قبل دغري ابن أختي يكون هونيك وأنا ابني هون يحاربوا ضد بعضهم.
بس لو راح يكون اتفاق السلام بين سوريا وإسرائيل
كثير بكون مبسوطة. كثير كلنا، مش بس أنا، رأيي الكل بكون مبسوطين، ونحن هون مبسوطين. يعني إسا بتمناش أنا إنه نرجع على سوريا، بتمناش. لأنه الحياة كثير صعبة بسوريا. طلع شو عم بيصير.
The Golani Druze who identify as Israeli mainly tend to be from the younger generation. Maya and her father Talia have always been among the exception, Israeli from the start.
אתה מגדיר את עצמך כערבי? את הדרוזים כערבים?
אני ערבי, דרוזי, גולני, ישראלי.
Talia was an infant when Israel took over the Golan Heights. When he was growing up, almost everyone around him remained steadfastly Syrian. And perhaps because Talia lived between two worlds, he knows something about reconciliation.
יש מקום לרב קיום. בואו נשתף פעולה, תאספו את האלימות.
אתה חושב שיש לדרוזים תפקיד מיוחד בתהליך הזה?
כן, כן. כי הדרוזים תמיד היו גורם מגשר. הדרוזים יש להם רול, תפקיד חשוב בגישור בין האויבים, ואנחנו כל פעם משדרים שלא צריך מלחמה, לא צריך אלימות. אנחנו לא יכולים לחיות אחד בלי השני, יא עמי. אנחנו ככה נולדנו. המדינה הזאת נולדה ככה. יש את הערבי ויש את היהודי ויש את כולנו. אנחנו חייבים לדעת לחיות אחד עם השני. לא יעזור לנו. אם אנחנו נחשוב אחרת, אנחנו נהרוס את עצמנו.
The drive to prevail, to survive, to carry on, it's inherent to the Druze people. Talia's belief in coexistence and his hope for the future came from that same wellspring of strength as Naila, Alma's mother. Naila and I stood together in the place where her daughter Alma took her last breaths.
All the kids, the 12 kids, they left us, but they left a beautiful message. I'm not going to say peace, 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 no. Right now, I don't believe in the word peace. I believe in acceptance. When we accept each other, it doesn't matter where you're from, what is your ethnicity, religion, no. Your color, no. The most important thing that humanity must rise above all divisions. These kids, these angels, had a simple message, but it's very powerful. Humanity and acceptance must rise above all divisions. We deserve that. We deserve that.